believe that we're live. Let me double check. Hey guys, my name's Luke. Welcome to the live class. We did one yesterday. We're doing one today because why not? Why not? I can't think of any reason not to. We have a lot of things to talk about. A few things I wanted to cover. Some interesting questions came in I want to answer. By the way, guys, make sure right at the start you hit the like button. That would be great. That really helps the channel. If you want to see future videos, make sure you subscribe. Also very important. Maybe the most important thing. Well, not the most important. I mean, there are more important things in life, but not that many. No, there are. There are more important things in life. I'm just going to make sure that we're live and everything is working. Yes, it looks good. We're good. Good to go. Lolly says there's no sound. Really? That's weird. That would be very strange if there's no sound. I'm seeing sound. Hi from Queens. Can you guys not hear me? No? No? Okay, there is sound. Guys, is there sound? I'm getting a couple of messages that there's no sound. And if there's no sound, that would be bad news. That would be terrible. That would be awful. Let me double check. I'm going to put on my giant headphones, and I'm going to check the sound. Pardon me. Don't worry, guys. We have some good stuff to talk about, but I wouldn't want to talk for a long time and then find out, oh my God, there's no sound. Oh no, it's working. I'm checking it. Lolly's just joking around with me. Come on, guys. Well, thanks to those of you who joined the live stream yesterday. Yesterday we were outside. I will be doing more outdoor live streams certainly in the future. I want to do one in Brooklyn. I want to do one in along the Brooklyn Bridge especially, and then into Brooklyn and Upper West Side of Manhattan. There are a lot of places I want to go, so we'll definitely do more of those in the future. But these ones in this place that we're in for these are going to be more, topic based, and we got some interesting questions that I'm going to be answering, and of course, as usual, I will be taking additional questions from you guys as you submit them. So that's how it's going to go. That's how it works. It's great to have those of you who are here. Fantastic. And I think we can get started. You like the live streams outside? Okay. Yeah, don't worry. We will definitely do more of those. But can't only do those because I can't always go outside, Yeah, I can't always go outside. Well, that's a good one to start with. Set the tone. Actually, that's a good one to start because it can set the tone for the rest of the lesson. So I'm going to pop that one up. It's a good question. All right, Casey McMaster, who lives in Queens. Who knows? Maybe even in my building. Could be downstairs. I have no idea. Well, anyway, Casey Master says, how can I use this idiom, set the tone? Now, this can be used in a lot of different ways, but it's often about getting people into the same frame of mind, usually with something that you say or with an action. And it can be both positive or negative. So let's talk about a few examples. So right now, you may know, or you may not know, it doesn't matter, there is a presidential race going on. There are people trying to become president, right? And at times, it can get a bit nasty. Nasty meaning people say, oh, this person did something bad in the past, or you lied about that, or whatever, okay? Now, if someone says something particularly nasty about someone else, one candidate for president says that about another candidate, that could set the tone for this, for example, presidential race. This time, it would be a negative tone, right? Well, that comment you made really set the tone for the rest of that debate. Everyone was just fighting amongst themselves, blaming each other rather than having a productive debate and a productive conversation. Okay, so that would be setting a certain tone. Now, is it the words that set the tone, or is it the action of criticizing someone? Well, it's hard to say, and it could be either one. But it doesn't have to be used in the negative way. It's often used in a positive way, okay? So we could say at the beginning of, for example, a live class, I'd like to set the tone for this live class just by making it clear why I'm doing these live classes and what they're about and what I'm going to talk about. This can help to get the right feeling in everyone's minds who may be watching a live class so that it's productive, so that we can all sort of learn what we want to learn, and maybe so that we can contribute, ask questions, or whatever, okay? So that would be a way that we could use set the tone as well. To be clear, it could be something that we say. It could also be an action. It could be positive action. It could be a negative action. Maybe, for example, someone giving to charity or donating, right? And then that's in the news where people find out about it. That might set the tone among a group of friends who may then also follow their lead and also do that thing. So often setting the tone means that people might start to get the feeling for this type of behavior and may begin to act in alignment with this behavior. They may begin to act kind of the same way. Oh, my friend donated to, what was that one about the trees? People were donating. Mr. Beast started this huge campaign to plant, how many trees? 20 million trees, I think it was. And that set the tone for the rest of YouTube to the audience of different influencers on YouTube to donate money to plant trees. And then other YouTubers were making videos about it and their followers were donating. So we could say Mr. Beast set the tone, and that was a positive thing. That beginning action that he took to set a goal of planting 20 million trees. Okay, setting the tone. Again, it could be negative, okay? People arguing, that sets the tone for a lot more argument. That's how it's generally used. You could say it with a group of friends. You could say it in public, maybe a public forum, or maybe something in the a debate on television or a reality TV show. It can be used for all kinds of different situations. So hopefully that answers your question, Casey Master, and I think it's a good one for sure. We got more people in. That's good. Establish a particular mood or character for something. Yeah. Did you get that from me or did you get that from online? Because I think that works. I'm happy with that. If you guys, I've mentioned this 1,000 times, but a great dictionary for looking up idioms and expressions is the free dictionary. That one is probably the best one because it has whole idioms, whole expressions, and very, very useful because it has lots of examples. Hey, Art, the governor's speech set the tone for the whole conference. The good financial news set an optimistic tone for the year. Very good examples. Are those your examples, JP Dynabook, or are you taking those from somewhere? Either way, those are certainly solid. I like those, absolutely. Art's here. Xiaoli is here. Sleepwalker is here. Glad everybody's here. Well, as usual, guys, we're kind of going to mix it up between a couple different things. I have some topics to talk about. I got an interesting question from Lolly Lolly. We're going to talk a little bit about Google. I want to talk a little bit about coronavirus because there's been some news about it. And I want to talk about some pronunciation as well. So I think we're going to just quickly run the intro just because that's the thing I want to do during the live streams. We'll do that, and then we'll get started with the first topic. And guys, please, as you are listening, just, roll some questions around in your head and pop them in, and we'll try our best to get to them. I've got plenty of time today, so that should be easy for us to accomplish. All right. Let's hit the intro. Okay. So I want to start with pronunciation. I want to just clearly go through one specific part of pronunciation that I get constantly asked about. Okay, so we're going to talk about the S sound, pronunciation of the S sound, because it can be pronounced different ways, generally 3 different ways, but there are also combinations of letters that give the S sound. There are other letters that make the same sound. There are a lot of variations of this. So, okay, we're going to talk about this first. Okay, so the pronunciation of the S. How do we say the S sound clearly? Well, we can't just say, how do we say the S sound clearly, because there are different ways to say it. And the best way to learn anything is to do some examples, to learn by examples. If you think about any native English speaker in any language, the way that they learned was through their parents, the people around them, speaking constantly and slowly picking it up. Babies are natural sponges for language, especially, very importantly, for what are called phonemes. Phonemes are the sounds that make up words. Phonemes. Phonemes. Okay. Now, it gets harder to learn these the older we get. There's a special period at age 2, and then there's another age at 7, a cutoff period where it gets more and more difficult, and then as people get older and older, it gets harder and harder. So you have to practice more and more to get these sounds right. Some of these sounds are really tough to pick up, especially if you didn't learn the language earlier. Now, luckily, the S sound is not so bad because most languages have the basic S phoneme, the basic S sound. But S does make some other sounds like Z, like the Z sound, so we have to be aware of that as well. So we're going to go through some examples. My iPad is making some noise, some news. Oh. Senator Amy Klobuchar is ending her presidential campaign and will endorse former Vice President Joe Biden. All right. Anyway, that's some news I just got on my iPad. So, we need to go through examples so that we can get a feeling for this. I am not a big fan of learning through phonetic symbols. Those little symbols that you get that tell you what the pronunciation is for a particular word or a particular sound in a particular word. I'm not a big fan because they don't actually get you all the way there. They get you to a point over here to remember something, but they don't actually get you to the point of saying the thing, saying the correct sound, right? So I'm not a big fan. Not a good way to remember sounds. Definitely not a good way to actually learn how to say them. And I think a lot of people who learn languages would agree with that. You want to learn how to pronounce things clearly, you have to figure out the mouth sounds by yourself. You have to get a feeling for the mouth sounds by developing your self-awareness and also your ear so that you can hear when other people are saying a specific sound that might be slightly different from another one. All right, so enough talking. Let's go through some examples. Now we have here first some S sounds as Z and some C sounds as S. Okay, so we have 2 different sounds here. One is the basic S sound and the other is a Z sound. Okay, so let's go through the ones on the left here first. H-O-S-E. Hose. 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 So if you really want to make sure you get it, you can stretch that Z out. One common problem with the Z sound in general for English learners is to make it too sharp so that it's something like this. Hose. Hose. Especially among Chinese English learners. Hose. Hose. It's too hard. And I would ask you to try to continue that for 10 seconds. Can you go? No, it's very difficult, but very soft and very natural. It has to be that long, soft sound where your tongue is vibrating at the upper part of your mouth, which is called your hard palate. It has to really vibrate, but not too hard so that it sounds natural. So, hose and then tools. Tools. Now, this one is a little more difficult because you have that L sound first. So first try to say tool, 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 and then add the Z sound after it. Tools, tools, tools. All right? Next one. Chasm, chasm. Now here we have the A sound before the Z sound rather, and then the Z sound before the M sound. Zum, zum. So you have to be able to make that transition very quickly. Zum, zum. Chasm, 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 okay? It's actually not that hard, but you have to make sure you get all of the sounds in there. Fused, fused, Now for this one, actually, the tough sound is the Y sound after the F. There's a little yeah, fused, right? It's a little bit tough, a little bit difficult. The last one might be the easiest one, loser. So this one is actually an oo sound. Lu and then zer. Loser. It's got to be very soft, because if it's loser or looser or something like that, it will sound like something else, and then people will misunderstand you, and that's not good. Okay, so that's the S as Z. Now let's look at the C as S, the basic S sound. So M-A-C-E is mace. That's a basic S sound. Farce. All we're saying here is S. That's all we're saying. Mace. Farce. Okay? Center. Citation. So these should be very easy. Citation. It's just like the S sound. Yes, it's a C, but when the C comes before an I, an E, or a Y, it is often what we say the soft C, which is the same as the basic S sound. So these should be easy, but it's important to know that C can make the S sound. All right, so we've talked about the S as Z, and we've talked about the C as S. Don't be confused. I know. Now we need to talk about basically the S sound at the beginning of words. Now these should be very easy. Soul, sauna, and summer, okay? This is just for reference. Soul, sauna, summer. Soul, sauna, summer. Okay, very easy. Soul, sauna, summer. This should not be too difficult, right? Very easy. Now we get into a little bit more complexity when we put other sounds with them, because with soul, sauna, summer, that's followed immediately by vowel sounds. O, ana, right? The other ones have consonant sounds paired with them. SL, SM, SN, right? So this one is sloth. So you have to jump very quickly from the S to the L sound. That's the challenge. Sl. You have to jump to the next thing very quickly. You cannot make a space because it's not an extra syllable. It's not sloth. That's a common mistake, to make that an S-U-H sort of sound. It's not. You have to immediately jump to it. Very quick. Sloth. Then the next one, smooth. Again, it can't be smooth. It's got to be immediate. And the same with the next one, snare. Smooth, snare. Notice there's no space between the S sound and then the consonant sound that follows it. No space. That's extremely important. Otherwise, it's going to sound weird. Snare. What is snare? I have no idea what you're talking about. Snare. Oh, okay. Now I understand what you're talking about. It makes a big difference. It might sound small and not important, but it really matters. It's very important. Okay, and the last group here is when S comes before a sound that is also a consonant, but after another sound. So this one is dust. So we have the vowel sound, followed by T. Dust. And then first. Very similar. First. Now, a lot of people struggle with this one because you have to jump from the R sound right into the S. Erse. So your tongue is curled back and up and then flicks forward into the S. Erse. If it sounds like us, that's wrong. A lot of people say that. That's incorrect. It's a mistake. It should be erse. Now, British pronunciation, you could say, is a little bit more relaxed with something like erst, but it's still there. There's still a simple R sound. Americans will say and then go directly to the S sound. So we'll say first, then dusk. That one should be easy. And then school. So this one has the S followed by a K sound, even though it's CH. School. Okay, so these should be not too difficult, easy to learn. You have to copy them and practice them. It's not enough just to learn them. If you have difficulty with any of these, make a little list, write it down, practice them 100 times, say them many, many times. They have to become habits. Pronunciation is not something you should be thinking about as you're speaking. That is wrong. That is going to make it very tiring to say anything. You shouldn't be thinking about pronunciation. It's only going to make you more tired. It's got to become a habit. Okay, we have one more of these to look at. Muscle, missile, and mushy. Okay, muscle, missile, and mushy. Now, I put mushy in there just to let you know that usually when it's with an H, it's a sh sound, not an S sound. Okay, just to be clear, when you have an S and an H together, it's sh, not s. I think probably most of you know that. But when we have two S's together, or we have an S followed by a C, it is going to be just the basic S sound. Muscle, missile, muscle, missile. Is there any difference in the M-U-S-C and M-I-S-S? Not in the S sound, no. It's exactly the same. Muscle, missile, muscle, missile, muscle, missile. Same S sound. However, when it gets paired with an H, it's sh, mushy, 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 mushy. All right, now the last one is tough for a lot of people. Many people struggle with this pronunciation. This is a special pronunciation of the S, which is, follow me if you can, zh. Now, just like the Z sound, when we said we were going to do the Z sound correctly, we have to stretch it out, right? The Z sound goes zzz. If you can't hold it for 10 seconds, you're saying it wrong. It's the same for this one, except this one is sh plus ah. If you put sh plus ah together, then you get zh. It's not j, j, j. It's not J. Got to be careful. If it's too hard, it sounds like J. J, 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 j. No, it's not J, because J cannot last long. It doesn't work, right? It's not that. If it's too soft, then it sounds like this. Also wrong. Also wrong. No, it is zh. I look like an idiot making the sound, but that is how it's said, okay? Sh, sh plus and that is how you say it. So these words will be fusion, fusion, not fusion, fusion, fusion. Usually, a lot of people struggle with usually. Usually, soft, very gentle, right? But not too gentle. A lot of people say usually. No, no, not usually. Usually. But it's also not usually. Also wrong. Right in the middle. Usually. Usually. Okay? Got it? Decision. Usually. Decision. Usually. Decision. Usually. Now, notice that that last S in decision is actually a Z sound. Decisions. Decisions. So that makes it even more difficult. Okay? So we have these three: fusion, usually, decisions. Fusion, usually, decisions. All right, so hopefully you've been kind of following along as I've been saying them, trying to copy them yourself. My suggestion is, for any that are difficult, or for any word at all, in fact, you have to write them down and you have to practice them many, many times, because if you don't, they will not become habits. And if they don't become habits, I'm afraid that you really have no chance of pronouncing things correctly when you're in a high-pressure situation and you're trying to express yourself, trying to think about the sentence and the word and the grammar and all of that. There's no chance of remembering the pronunciation, or at least very little chance, okay? So you've got to make them habits by repeating them. But what if you can't listen to me say the sounds? Well, you can go to most dictionary websites or apps and click on the little play button and listen to it and copy it. You have to develop your ear and develop your awareness of yourself so that you can hear when you say it and it sounds like what you heard. Again, I don't recommend that you use the symbols. I think it's a distraction. Do your best, repeat, develop your awareness, develop your habits, and I think you will go a long way in improving your pronunciation. By the way, guys, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, and check out my courses, which cover a lot of different topics, in the links in the description. Okay. All right. Did I miss anything? Am I live, sir? Oh, I guess that must have been pretty clean. Yeah, I'm live. Did that look edited? No, so when I'm talking to the camera, I don't want to keep looking back and forth to the comments and look up and look down. I just want to keep it kind of focused. So when I'm speaking on camera, I'm trying to just, I'm trying to keep it moving. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Only love to work hard. Yes, I am live. Yes, I am live. I am live. This is live. We are live. Thanks for asking. I'm confirming. Let's see. Do you guys have any issues? Mustard. Is that one you want me to say? Mushroom and mustard? I can say both of those. When you say that someone has a posh accent, is that pejorative or does it mean the accent is distinguished and elegant? I think it depends on who you are. I've heard it used often. It's, by the way, a specific accent in London. People who generally are regarded as highly educated and maybe wealthier. They have a certain sound, a certain accent often, and that is called a posh accent. I think some people would use it as a pejorative to mean, oh, that's bad that you have that. Maybe. I don't hear it used that way very often. Generally speaking, I hear it used in a positive way. People use it to say, this is just how it sounds, just as a description, right? And not to say, oh, these people who talk like this are bad or whatever. Yeah. Guys, again, don't forget to hit the like button. And who's the person who hit 1 thumbs down? How dare you? How dare you? Unbelievable. Hello from Istanbul. Afer, hello. My Chinese is very well, but I interested in English at all. You are interested in English or you are not interested in English, Ford? Yeah, sure. Well, hopefully that's clear now. I mean, pronunciation is not an easy one to master, frankly. And you have to really work at it, and it's all about habits. I want to do IELTS. I'm from India. Please guide me. Thank you. Well, I suppose I can't guide you right at this moment in a very realistic way, but yeah, the bad guy who put the dislike. Get out of here. So with IELTS, it's complicated because there are 4 different parts. There's the writing part, the reading part, the speaking part, and the listening part. And so it's not as simple as just saying, oh, let me give you 2 pieces of advice and you'll be fine. Nope, it's not like that. It's a very difficult test. You might be good in one area and bad in others, or okay in one area and not great in others. And so it's very complicated, and there's really no advice that I can give you in 30 seconds that you're going to say, oh, okay, now I know, and then do well on the IELTS. Forget about it. You have to work at it. You have to practice like crazy if you want to do well on IELTS. You've got to practice answering the 3 IELTS speaking questions. Part 1 is conversational. Part 2 has several parts to it. It is also conversational, but it is a 2-minute answer. And then part 3 is an extension of part 2. But then you have the writing section, which requires you to use more idioms and words correctly and requires you to have good structure and good syntax. Much more difficult to develop if you don't already have those skills. That takes a lot of practice. Reading is often easier for a lot of people because you're simply answering questions based on what you understand. So if you can read, that's generally easier. And then the listening part, it really depends on how good your listening is. Of course, there are many ways to improve listening. One being watching movies and TV shows, listening to TED Talks especially because the topics are more academic. But there are many ways to practice. I mean, really, my single advice is if you're planning to take IELTS, you'd better get practicing. Start practicing right now. Yeah. Oh, you want another video about books, Casey Master? What video about books? Oh my God, now we have 2 thumbs down and 1 thumb up. This is very rare. I'm usually at all thumbs up. There are 2 thumbs down and 1 thumbs up. This is horrible. I might have to end this live stream right here. I can't have this. If whoever is watching has a thumbs down, turn it to a thumbs up because that's not good. I don't like it. I don't like it. What sort of books are you interested in learning about, Casey? I would be more than happy to do a video about books, but maybe you can give me some more details specifically. Do you think that the best way to learn vocabulary is translate those English words in our own language, or try to give them a meaning with our own words but in English? It depends on your level. I would say if you're a beginner in English, then the only thing that you can do is translate them into your own language. What else can you do? You have nothing else really to do. However, if you're able to understand what I'm saying, then you are not at that level. You are at a higher level. So you should be learning English words in your language. You should be learning English words, not in your language, in English. You should be taking the words, reading them, the meaning in the dictionary, right? Understanding them in the dictionary, the definition. Then you should be making your own sentences and practicing them. The free dictionary is a great dictionary. Vocabulary.com is a great dictionary. There are so many, but if you're only learning words in your own language and not really using English to learn words, then every time you have to say a word, you have to carry your language around with it. And there is this constant pressure on speaking because all the time you have to do the hard work of translation, because all of your thoughts around a specific word are in your language, not in English. So you kind of are hopeless when it comes to learning to think in English, which is a big part of speaking English well. I've said this quite a few times, but yeah, you need to start learning English in English, and it will be hard at first, and it's tiring probably and frustrating, but it's really the only way to get there, to get to thinking in English. Yeah, I wanted to, guys, because the coronavirus stuff has been happening, I wanted to give a quick update. Because I've been reading about it carefully, and I don't know if everyone is, and so I kind of just wanted to talk about it a little bit, give a quick update, let you know what's going on around the world in the United States. I'm sure you've seen it on the news, but it's slightly frightening, and I think everyone needs to be aware. So I'm going to just talk about it for a couple minutes because it's something I really care about, because I have a lot of friends in China. They're sending me a lot of videos of what's been going on over there. It's starting to spread around the world. I think everybody needs to start seriously paying attention to what's going on. And so I just want to share a quick update about coronavirus. This has nothing to do with English necessarily, right? Just a quick update, update about it. So if you haven't been paying attention, basically the coronavirus is now not a Chinese phenomenon. It's not something that's happening in China. It has spread around the world. It is now in 65 countries around the world. A lot of people don't realize how many countries coronavirus has spread to. And so I want to give a quick update so everybody knows what's going on if you haven't seen the news already, just because I want people to know what I know, and I think I read maybe more about it than a lot of other people. I'm not trying to blame anybody for not reading that much about it. It's kind of depressing to read about, but I think if we're all sort of just aware what's going on, then we can take actions when we see more and more cases around us. Now, I don't say this as someone looking at the world and thinking, oh, the poor world out there is starting to get coronavirus, but not me. I'm not worried. I'm worried. Yesterday, in New York, they announced the very first case. A woman who came back, she visited Iran, she came back from Iran, and she has coronavirus. She has been confirmed to have the virus. Now, they have said, the authorities, the governor of New York State has said she's been contained the whole time. But I don't think everybody realizes why coronavirus is so bad. It's bad not because of the rate, the death rate, which is lower than a lot of viruses, There's some viruses that are up to 70% mortality rate. That means 70% of the people who get infected die. This is only, we don't know for sure, but it may only be 2%. Well, let's say it's 2%. It's so contagious that if 40% of the world gets infected, 2% of 40% is a huge number. A huge number. The world has over 7 billion people. What's 40% of 7 billion? Now, what's 2% of that? So even if it is only 2%, if it is as contagious as it looks like it is, and if it continues to spread as quickly as it has been spreading, people need to be fully aware of what's going on. That's why I'm talking about this now. They need to start thinking about how they're going to act when it's near them, and we have to be very responsible. So I just want to share a few things. Number one, where the cases are, how many there are. I mentioned there's a new one in New York. There are now, I believe, over I think 80 cases in the United States, and there have been now 2 deaths in the United States. So that's just what's going on right now in the United States. Over 80 cases, 2 deaths. First one has been reported in New York, which is where I live. Okay. What about the rest of the world? So, it's 88 cases. Sorry. From this picture, we can see, look how many there are in Italy. 1,600 cases, right? Iran, over 900 cases. Over 900 cases in Iran. China, obviously where it started, that's going to be the biggest number. It's continuing to grow, but it looks like the growth has slowed down. 80,000, more than 80,000, probably way more than what we see here. South Korea, 4,200. Now, one of the main reasons that it spread in South Korea is because a lot of people didn't believe it was serious, didn't really believe it was a threat. And some communities would gather together. Large groups of people would get together. One person would be sick with this. They wouldn't really pay attention or care that one person was ill with this, and they would continue to gather. And that caused it to spread very quickly. So now we have a huge number of cases in South Korea, more than anywhere else in the world besides China. And then Japan, 900 cases, and most people are probably aware of the a cruise ship where there was the infection happening, and that wasn't handled very well. So it's something that you need to pay attention to, I think. No matter where you live in the world, you need to know what's going on. You need to know where it is. As you can see, 65 countries and more will continue to have cases as time goes on. So I'm not a news reporter, but I just want to kind of get the word out there and make sure everybody's kind of paying attention to what's happening. I want to go back to that. So 89,000 people totally around the world have been infected. Now you might say, oh, well, that's how many people have the flu. Yes, it's true, but just pay attention to that simple fact that it spreads during the incubation period. What does that mean? So virus will have an incubation period. That is the period when you are sick, but you aren't showing symptoms. So you could have the virus and be spreading it to everybody around you through spit, through coughing, through touching things that have your saliva, and then other people touching that, right? You could be spreading it to a lot of people, for example, in a large group of people that you know, and you have no idea because you don't have any symptoms yet. That's the reason that this is so dangerous. That's the reason that it's spreading so quickly, because people are just running around spreading it and they don't know they're sick, and then they get sick and they say, oops, I was sick. I shouldn't have been spreading it around. But how did they know? People don't know. So that's what's so dangerous about it. To be clear, it's not about the mortality rate. It's about the level of how contagious it is. It's about how contagious it is. One more thing I want to show you really quickly. So, how afraid should people be? I would say we should be afraid. If people say, don't worry, don't freak out, everybody, just relax. I don't think relaxing is the right thing to do. But I also don't think panic is the right thing. Don't lose your mind with fear, right? That's not good. But you have to be fearful enough to respect what's going on and to realize that this has potential to do a lot of damage around the world. It's not just in China anymore, okay? So I would say be scared but not panicked. Now, in the United States, they're telling people, don't buy a mask, don't get a mask, because that's what is the healthcare professionals need that, right? Don't take resources away from the healthcare professionals. You can listen to that. My advice would be get a mask. It's better to protect yourself. The fact is, if you've seen my other video about masks, when you breathe out and cough and sneeze, that's stuff going into the air. Wearing a mask will help with that. Even if it's a basic, cheap surgical mask, it can help with that. And also, it can prevent you from getting sick by up to 70%. 70% reduction in, from what I read, a 70% reduction in the level of flu for nurses who are in a flu hospital or a hospital with a lot of flu patients, for the nurses who wore masks and who washed their hands. So I would say, no matter what other people are telling you, try your best to get a mask. Get a good mask, an okay mask. Wash your hands very often, very often. As soon as you come home, wash your hands. Wash your hands before you eat. Wash your hands as often as you can. And I would use the hand sanitizer. I usually carry hand sanitizer with me. I don't have it here right now, but I usually carry it. Generally speaking, once you know that there are cases around, probably best to avoid events with a lot of people. Mixing with a lot of people is a good way to spread it pretty quickly, and that's what caused the coronavirus to be spread in especially South Korea very quickly. So just be aware of it. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but it's something to pay attention to. And don't touch your face. That's a big one, because when you touch your face, it goes in your eyes like that. You touch your eyes. If you have something on your finger and you do that and you rub your eyes, you can get infected that way. So that's another one. Finally, take care of your immune system. Take care of your immune system. That means, I don't know, how do you take care of your immune system? Vitamin C, vitamin D, take vitamins, eat right, make sure that you're healthy enough so that, if you do get sick, that you can recover as quickly as possible. I just wanted to go over some of that stuff because, and I realize it's not an English learning topic, but I think it's important for people to be aware of and pay attention to and watch out for, because it's happening, right? It's happening, spreading. And if you guys have other experiences, I would be eager to hear about them. Wow, we have so many dislikes today. I don't know what's going on with all the dislikes, but usually it's at 100% likes, and today we have 5 dislikes. Maybe because I'm talking about a depressing topic. Maybe I have something in my nose. I don't know what's going on. But it sucks. Xiaoli, are you from China? Would you like to recommend what name of the best dictionary online? Xiaoli, I would say the free dictionary is probably the best one. My favorite dictionary is the free dictionary. Thefreedictionary.com, in my opinion. You can learn there both idioms, full idioms and expressions, phrasal verbs, and single words. So that's why I like it. It's very good. It's awesome. I use it quite often. And that's another thing that can help you start thinking in English, Instead of looking up an idiom or a phrase in your own language, you see it in English, you understand it in English. Now you should know something about the context. The problem with translation, especially for idioms, is that idioms are used in social situations. How can your dictionary translate? How can a translator translate the social situation that these are used in? It really can't. It can't. So it's extremely important to learn in context and learn completely in English if it's possible. If it's possible. Not that you should completely forbid yourself from translating things ever, but just generally speaking. Oops, that was an accident. I didn't mean to put that up there. Sorry. Okay. Teacher, how to follow you and learn English? I'm not quite sure what you mean, Ford. That's a pretty general question. It's so broad and general, I don't even know how to begin to answer it. Yeah. the world to get rid of the virus. Well, we haven't got rid of it yet, Sleepwalker. We have to get rid of it. So, that's why we should just pay attention to it, and we should know what's going on, and everyone should get a mask and wash their hands all the time and take care of their immune system, Art says, in Russia, medics don't want to diagnose coronavirus. There's no place where you can go and check yourself. See, that sucks. That's the kind of thing that makes the situation worse. If they don't want to diagnose it, then they're hiding it, and that makes it spread even faster because nobody knows that they should be extra careful, right? That's why when I hear one case in New York, I'm going to start wearing my mask. From today, basically, since it started yesterday in New York, the first case, I'm going to start wearing my mask right away. The other thing is, so there's a big problem in America with this. I don't know if you guys know, but in America, the healthcare industry, health insurance rather, is very expensive. A lot of people don't have insurance in America. A lot of Americans don't have insurance. And so, if you don't have insurance, how can you pay your medical bill? Or will you want to go to the hospital just to get a huge medical bill? There was a story of a man who thought he might have coronavirus, so he went to the hospital to check proactively, and he didn't have health insurance, which many people in America do not, and he came back and found out that he did not have coronavirus, and then the hospital sent him a bill for $3,000 just to get checked. Now, can you tell me how many people will proactively go to the hospital to get checked if they know that they're going to have to pay $3,000? There will be many people who just say, nah, I'll just stay at home. I don't want to pay that much to get checked. Okay, this is bad news. If people decide not to get checked, and we don't know how many cases there really are, then we're all spreading it to each other. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody's telling any doctors. That's really scary. So I'm more scared of the coronavirus in America than I am in China, because in China, you can go to the hospital easily. The government can make sure nobody leaves the city, but not in America. Scary stuff. Scary stuff. Are all people in America rich? Absolutely not. No, that is not true. Many people are not rich. Xiaoli, you live in New York? Really? Well, that's cool. Did I know that? Where do you live? Where do you live in New York? That's cool. Stock food and water? Yeah, I'm not so into that. I don't think there's going to be any food and water shortages, to be honest. I think people are a little bit too scared when they're getting in long lines at Costco, A lot of people getting in long lines waiting for a bunch of paper towels. I don't think that you need to stock up on food, to be honest. Just my opinion. All of this is my opinion. How do you develop a good immune system? Saeed says. All right, Saeed, are you a doctor? Avoid sugar-based food. Avoid processed food. Avoid bad oil like soybean oil. Cook food at high temperatures. Avoid stressful conditions. Get proper sleep. Exercise. Do regular fasting. Do water fasting. Breathing exercise. All of that sounds good to me. I do fasting and breathing exercises. Sounds good. Sounds like a good plan. Saeed, are you a doctor? Teacher, as long as I don't know your name is. My name is Luke, guys. Oh, Xiaoli, you live in Long Island. Ah, okay. I've been thinking about moving to Long Island eventually. Good old Long Island. How much do you earn? Guys, I don't know. That's not a very appropriate question for YouTube. I make $1 a day. So that's $365 a year. That's not bad. That's enough for a nice dinner. Do you earn enough to bear monthly expenses? This is an area that I feel like it's not very useful to everybody. Let's talk about things that are useful to everybody. I make $1 a day. It's true. Staying at home. At home, it's called Chengdu. Panda here. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people in China. I have a lot of friends in China who are staying at home. And I have one friend who stayed at home for 45 days. 45 days. And another friend who has stayed at home for 42 days. So that's a long time. But I think people are willing to, make a sacrifice to try to end this as quickly as possible. And a lot of Chinese cities have suspended travel between cities. So all good measures to prevent the spread, but also pretty extreme. Yeah, $1 a day. That's how much I make. It's not very much. Very sad. All right. Now, do you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, I showed you how you can use Google Home or Google Assistant to learn English. Well, I would like to kind of do an extension of that, just kind of quickly, because there's something kind of cool that you can do that is just something to be aware of for those of you who are interested in, sentence structure and that kind of thing. Okay, so what I want to do is, let's see if I can bring up the, how do I click on my window? Hold on a second. Okay. Does this work? Hold on. I'm just going to try something, guys. I didn't prepare well enough to switch windows. I just want to see if this works. Okay. Hey, that works, right? You guys can see that, right? You can see my browser? Okay. How can I, hold on. I'm trying to figure this out. Crop to fill, show current application. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, cool. I think I got it. That's cool. So what I want to do is I want to show you guys something that I think is pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. We talked before about how you can use Google Assistant to talk to someone. Basically, we talked before about how you can use Google Assistant to have a language partner, right? Google Assistant can be a good way to practice using words, to practice maybe pronunciation, to practice asking simple questions, right? But we can also use Google autocomplete in an interesting way. When you're especially learning grammar, you can actually find interesting sentences that can help you get a feeling for how to use grammar correctly. So if you use Google at all, if you use especially Google Chrome as a browser, you may have noticed that when you are searching something, the window or the browser or the URL bar is finding things for you, right? It's suggesting searches that you might want. It's saying, hey, you might want to search this or you might want to search that. This is actually a cool idea, a cool way to discover new sentences. Maybe you have a grammatical piece, the beginning of a sentence, and you might say to yourself, how can I maybe extend that into a full sentence? Or I don't understand this grammar. How does it work? What does it look like in a full sentence? Well, that's what we're going to take a look at really quickly, just to sort of show you that learning grammar is something you can do by yourself. All right, so let's take a look at the old browser here. It's the moon. Okay, I want to actually open this one. Yeah, here's what I want. All right, so we got the moon in the background. We got my browser here. And what I want to do is just start typing something. Okay. If you guys have suggestions for what you want me to type, that's fine. But I want to just start typing. So let's say we want to search what's the... Okay. Here we go. What's the difference between alligator and crocodile? What's the difference between a Democrat and a Republican? All right, let's keep going. What's the difference between the... Okay, let's see what we get. Then and then. Cold and flu. House and Senate. Okay, we get some suggestions here. There and there. All right. So if we want to know how to use that, we get some suggestions. And this is just an example. I have been wondering. Let's try that. About you, I have been wondering whether. How about that? I have been wondering whether. Let's see what we get. You will be free this evening. If after all these years. If after all these years. If after all this time. So we can get these little suggestions for how we can complete the sentence. And these are just random things that I'm pulling up. There's a good chance. There's a good chance this isn't coffee. There's a good chance I may have committed. There's a good chance this is whiskey. I'm getting a lot of alcohol-related ones. But you get the idea, guys. That's the idea. So what you can do is basically find a piece of a sentence that you may have heard somewhere and then see if you can fit it into a whole sentence after searching it in Google. Basically, open up your browser, type in that piece, and see what comes up. But the important thing is to sort of look at it as play. You want to look at it as something you're kind of experimenting with, looking at it as something that is just messing around, right? Not something that you're too serious about. That sort of thing makes it fun. And also relieves the pressure of it, right? Whether you're practicing writing, or you're learning grammar this way, whatever it is, think of learning as play, right? Use it as play. And when you do that, it's more likely that you'll pick it up naturally. And also it makes it a little more fun, right? So that's just a simple suggestion. Something that came up that one student told me. I have a student who said that they use that, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Okay, so hopefully that's useful. All right. Ford says, Luke, could you create an English name for me? I was born in 1991. Taurus, my Chinese name is Feng Teng. That's a tall order. You already have an English name, it looks like. Ford, right? Ford is a name, certainly. Karen says, can you be my English teacher and teach me, sir? I really want to learn from you. I don't really do one-to-one classes. Ford, my suggestion would be, rather than listening to one guy, me, throw out some random words or give you a name, right? I think Ford, by the way, is a cool name. I think you should just keep that. But the best thing to do is go on Google and search popular English names or interesting English boy names. Or interesting English baby names. Now, I know you're not a baby, Ford, but baby names means these are names that are popular now or getting popular. So it would be better for you to search that in Google and find a huge list and say, ooh, this one feels right to me, or that one feels right to me. That will probably be more likely to give you a good name. If you're asking for sort of the name meanings, in English, people don't really care what your name means. In a lot of languages, the meaning of the name is really important, especially in China. What does your name mean, right? In English, nobody cares what your name means. It's more about connotation. So a lot of the time, it's kind of interesting. So because English has so many different names, right? I hear names all the time that I've never heard before in my entire life. The thing that really matters is whether that name seems to fit the person, or, especially if someone is choosing a new name, or if it has any connotations that might be negative. So if you're choosing an English name for yourself, or if you just had a baby and you're choosing an English name for your baby, the best thing to do is do research based on context. In other words, if you choose the name Bertha for yourself and you're a girl, or you have a daughter and you say, I'm going to name my daughter Bertha, you have to know that that name comes with a lot of social baggage that you probably don't want. When people hear the name Bertha, they think of an old, very overweight woman. That's what I think of as soon as I hear that name. Okay? But the only way to know that is to know sort of the social consensus. So if you want to ask me any questions about this, I'm happy to give feedback, because this is kind of tough. It's kind of complicated. There are names that have a certain feeling. This is called connotation. Now, sometimes these connotations are not necessarily good or bad. They may just be generational. For example, the name Caroline or Carolyn. This is kind of an older name. This is a name that might fit someone in my parents' generation or even my grandparents' generation, right? Martha. Actually, my grandmother's name was Martha. It's kind of an older name. And so meeting someone named Martha might be okay, someone my age, but it's just very rare. And it's rare because names go in and out of popularity, right? A lot of people in my grade when I was in school were named Morgan. I guess they're still named Morgan, right? Just not at school anymore. But I don't think that Morgan is as popular as it used to be, right? These things go in and out of popularity. So generations have their own popular names and less popular names. That is one factor. Then there are the connotations where people associate certain things with certain names. I will always have to live with the fact that my name is Luke, and when people meet me, they go, I am your father, right? Because of Star Wars, because of Luke Skywalker. I live with that. Now, I'm okay with it because I like Luke Skywalker. I think Luke Skywalker is cool, so I'm fine with it. But my parents had to realize that when they named me Luke. They had to think about that and decide if that was a good thing or not. I wasn't named after Luke Skywalker, but that's kind of the idea. All right, so that's another factor. Now, there are personal things. There are people I know who have certain names, and I don't like those people. And so when I meet other people who have the same name, I think, ugh, that maybe is not a consideration, right? Because that's an individual thing. But at least consider the generational differences, at least consider the connotations, and pick something that you feel fits you. I would not recommend necessarily choosing something only because of the meaning of the name. Never have I been asked by anyone outside of China what my name means, because nobody cares. Doesn't matter. It means bringer of light. That's what Luke means, but nobody cares. Okay, so that's what you should think about when you're choosing an English name, at least. I want to study English from any American teacher, but I believe the best in the world, an English teacher, is from America. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think there are a lot of good teachers from a lot of places in the world, but I see your point. Fair enough. I mean, I think that's probably a generalization. There are probably teachers from America who are terrible, and teachers from America who are good, and teachers from Australia who are terrible, and teachers from Australia who are good. So, but we all have our preference. Maybe you want to learn from an American. That's your choice, right? It's your money. You should be able to do with your money what you want to do. Ford says, thanks, Mr. Luke. Even I just listened 40%, but you so care to me. I'm very 谢谢. 不客气. I want to learn Chinese. Tired of learning English. Let's try something new. Yeah. Well, don't learn Chinese from me. I'm not qualified. I'm unqualified to teach Chinese. I'm sure about that. My wife is Chinese, but I wouldn't consider myself a great Chinese speaker by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm certainly not qualified to teach it. Hey, says Corey. I've talked with my Irish professor today, and he told me I'm a B2 learner of English, and I've studied for about 1 year. Is it a good process from your point of view? You mean progress? It's a good question. I don't have a lot of confidence in the B1, B2 sort of system. Number one, it's not universal. Not everybody acknowledges exactly what fits in what group, so there's that. Also, you might have great vocabulary and be able to take an exam and get B2, but then how about your speaking? How about your listening, right? So I don't think it's very accurate. If you really want to know your English level, take an IELTS test. That's the best way to evaluate it. Honestly, IELTS is a good way to give you a feeling for how good your English is because you're testing all areas, speaking, listening, writing, and reading. Testing every area. You get an overall score, and you get an individual score for each part. So I would say if you really want to know how good your English is, take an IELTS test. B2, I don't even know what that means really because I haven't talked to you. You may have amazing vocabulary and be able to write, but in a conversation, I don't know. Maybe you can't say anything. Some people can't. Some people are even higher level than that. And when I ask them a question, they can't say anything because vocabulary is good, but maybe haven't practiced speaking enough, right? I'm really thirsty, guys. Let me drink some water as I read the comments here. Sleepwalker says learners should listen to all accents to understand better. That I agree with. You should be able to hear all accents. Not only native English accents. Of course, there's British English, there's American English, there's Australian English, New Zealand English, all of that stuff. But what about Indian English? What about French English? What about Italian English? What about Chinese English? What about Japanese English? It's all there. And so being able to hear everything is good for your listening skills, for sure. Hello, Liam. Can I take an ESL test? I don't know what an ESL test is. I don't know what that means. I know what ESL means, but there are probably many different ESL tests, right? All right, guys, we're going to talk about another topic. I hope that's okay. Do you think Indians have the best English? No, I don't necessarily think that. You mean among non-native English speakers? Among non-native English speakers, I would probably say people from the Netherlands have the best English. Generally, people in Scandinavian countries, on average, probably have the highest level of English. Now, in India, it's interesting because there is, not among everyone, of course, many people speak English, but there's also a very strong accent that often comes with Indian English that's very identifiable. And if you factor that in, then maybe it's a little lower. But of course, that's an average, right? So who am I to say? But I think most people who would judge the situation would say that people from the Netherlands tend to have the highest level of English among non-native English-speaking countries, I would say. Xiaoli says, I don't trust that what B2 or level. I speak more than I write. Yeah. Again, if you really want to know your level, take an IELTS test and call me in the morning. All right. So we've talked a little bit about pronunciation. We've talked a bit about Google. We've talked a bit about the coronavirus. What I'd like to do, if possible, is talk about what you have seen, then come to Mumbai. I've been to Mumbai. I'm not saying that Indian people don't speak good English. I'm saying there's a range, but I'm just saying on average, I think the Netherlands is probably best in general, according to me. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about a couple of phrases that are very useful. A student asked them about them in a comment on one of the videos, so I'm going to talk about a couple of phrases here that are similar, related, and very useful. So how can we use the phrase "by the way"? It can be used in different ways and for different reasons in different situations. So let's talk about how we can use it, and we'll talk about some other phrases that are very similar and how we can use those. Obviously, we're going to learn by example. Now, generally speaking, when we say "by the way," what we mean is by the way, what we mean is as a side point. We can use it to change topics when we suddenly want to bring up a new thing, or we could use it to, if we're on a topic, slightly change and mention something that's close to it. Now, if that sounds confusing, fine. Don't worry about it. We'll go through some examples. One thing that's really common when we're talking with someone is to say something like, "By the way, I'm Luke." Now, this is when I've met someone and they don't know my name, but we've been talking for a while. If we've been talking for 20 minutes about a topic, we've just met, I want you to know my name, so I'll say, "By the way, my name is Luke." Now, when you begin a conversation, why not say it then? It's very awkward to say, "My name is Luke, now let's begin a conversation." It never happens like that. I was talking to a guy on the subway yesterday for 20 minutes on the way home. I had never met him before. We were talking about train delays and all that stuff, and we were talking. He was telling me about his life and all the girls he dated in other places. It was very interesting. Then, before he left, before he got off, because his stop was earlier than mine, I said, "Oh, by the way, I'm Luke." And he said his name. That's how you do it. You say your name later, if at all. You don't have to. But the point is, when you want to slightly change something, you use "by the way." So let's look at a few other examples of this. "By the way, did you hear about the recent outbreak in Washington State?" Now, maybe we're talking about the virus outbreak, and I want to mention something about that, but slightly different. Maybe you're talking about the virus outbreak in China, and I say, "Oh, by the way, did you hear about the recent outbreak in Washington State?" Or perhaps we're just generally talking about the news. And if we're generally talking about the news, I might bring up some other news, and to sort of slightly change it, I'll say, "Oh, by the way, did you hear about the virus outbreak in Washington State?" Now, if we're talking about something completely unrelated, can I say, "By the way, did you hear about the Washington State outbreak?" Perhaps. It is a good way to change direction. Usually we're going to be on something that's closely related or not too far away. Then when I say "by the way," it sounds natural. I'm just sort of moving in a slightly different direction. That's the idea. "We were supposed to leave an hour ago, by the way." Now, this is a little different. This is when I want to mention it, but it's too late, right? I want to tell you something almost because I resent it. You're here talking to this person. You're my only way to get home because you drove, and you drove me here, wherever we are, maybe some party or something. And you're busy talking to someone, and I walk up to you and say, "We were supposed to leave an hour ago, by the way." Okay? Now, we use that not because we're on a related topic, but because I just want to let you know, even though it's too late, that that's what happened in the past. So we use it like this as well. Okay? Both of these are very common. "By the way, do you think you could drive me to school tomorrow?" Now, let's say this is a son or a daughter asking their father to drive them to school. Okay? This could be something sudden. So sometimes we use "by the way" to just bring up a new topic, right? Bring up a new thing. We're talking about other things. We're eating breakfast together. I have a way to go to school today, but I say to father, "Dad, by the way, do you think you can drive me to school tomorrow?" It could be apropos of nothing. That means it could be completely unrelated to anything we're talking about. He's reading the newspaper, and I just suddenly say, "Oh, by the way." It's a good way to bring up a topic like that. So if it's a simple everyday thing, you can use "by the way" to just suddenly bring something up. You can use "by the way" to say when something is a bit too late. and you want the other person maybe to feel a little guilty about it. And you can use it when you're in a related topic, talking about something not too far away from it, and you want to mention something else, right? Close by, in the similar topic, not too far away from what we're saying, either news or whatever it is, okay? So that's how we use by the way. Now we have a similar phrase here, while I'm on the subject. This sounds more formal, more polite in some situations. So you only will use this one when you want to give a feeling of being a little bit serious, you know. You're having an academic conversation. While I'm on the subject, and then you bring up the thing. While I'm on the subject, do you happen to have that $40 you borrowed? But we have to be on the subject. What subject? Well, we could be on the subject of money. Maybe we're talking about money and our expenses and how much things cost. So we're kind of on the subject of money. I'm talking about how much my rent is and all of that stuff. And I say, oh, by the way, while I'm on the subject, we can use by the way, or just while I'm on the subject, do you have that $40 you borrowed yesterday? It's a good way to bring something up suddenly. If they're talking about something that's also related, while we're on the subject, you could say while we're on the subject, or even while you're on the subject, but usually it will be while we're on the subject. Do you happen to have that $40 you borrowed from me? Or we could say, are you going to the book club Saturday? Okay, now what are we talking about? What's the subject? Well, it's probably something related to books, authors, events that we go to, whatever category can fit both the book club thing that we do on Saturday and whatever else we're talking about. While we're on the subject of the weekend plans, events, books, authors, whatever it may be, while we're on the subject, are you planning to go to the book club on Saturday? It's a sort of by the way thing. And you could say, by the way, are you planning to go to the book club on Saturday? Same thing. While we're on the subject, this feels a little bit more formal, While I'm on the subject, do you think you could come in on Saturday? Now, this is maybe a boss talking to someone on the staff, right? A boss talking to someone on the staff might say something like, oh, while we're on the subject, or while I'm on the subject of, what is the subject? Maybe it's how much hard work we have to do on this project we're doing. Maybe it's the fact that some other people had to do overtime. Maybe it's the fact that I had to stay late yesterday. Maybe it's the fact that you are making sure that you're getting paid for the overtime work that you did last weekend. Okay. Yes, of course. You will absolutely be paid double time for the work that you did last weekend. While I'm on the subject, do you think you could come in this weekend as well? Do you think you could come in on this Saturday as well? So it's a way to say, yes, you will be recognized and paid for what you did before, but I also want you to work extra because maybe we have work to catch up on. That's the idea. Now we have one more that's very similar. Since you mentioned it, this is again very similar to by the way, and while we're on the subject, since you mentioned it. But this one is you who said it, and because you said something, I'm bringing up something. This is common when we have been wanting to say something, but we have to wait for the right time. If I just suddenly say, you owe me $40, give me my $40 back. That does not feel nice, especially with friends, right? That feels so awkward. So we'll wait for an opportunity when you're talking about money or money people owe you or expenses or whatever. Then we'll say, since you mentioned it, do you think you could give me that $40 you owe me? Right? Because you mentioned it, I'm waiting for the opportunity. Since you mentioned it, I will take a small decaf coffee. Thanks. Since you mentioned it, I will take a decaf coffee. Thanks. Now, what about this one? Since you mentioned it, I will. What did they say? I'm going to go out and get some coffee. Is anyone interested? Yeah, since you mentioned it, I wouldn't have asked you to get a coffee unless you had offered. So your offer is mentioning it. So, yeah, I want one now that you said that you are going to go get one and that you're offering other people to get one for them. So, yeah, since you mentioned it. Or sometimes we say, now that you mention it, yes, I would, right? Since you mentioned it, you remember you owe me that $40? It's very useful, very useful. Since you brought it up, this is basically the same thing. Brought it up is exactly the same as mention it. I was actually thinking of canceling. Okay, we're talking about the event. Maybe it's the book club. Maybe I'm the host of the book club. What about the book club? Well, you want to go to the book club. We're talking about the book. We're on the topic. You know what? Since you mentioned, I'm thinking about canceling. I'm so tired this week. I have so much extra work I need to do. I don't know if we can do it. I've been thinking about canceling, but we're on the topic. That's the point. We're on the topic. One more of these. Now that you mention it, same thing, remember? I guess she does look like Shakira. Shakira is a musician, right? So if you say, you know what, she looks like Shakira. Do you think she looks like Shakira? I wouldn't have said that by myself. I wouldn't have noticed that she looks like Shakira. Right? I wouldn't have gone out of my way to say, that lady over there looks like Shakira. But since you mentioned it, now that you brought it up, I see the resemblance. She kind of does look like Shakira. You're kind of right. Okay, so hopefully these phrases are fairly easy to understand. They're all very common. They're all very closely related, as you can see from the examples. If you really want to learn this and get a feeling for this, the only thing you can do really is make your own examples. Write down your own examples, and you will, over time, begin to feel how they're used, and then next time you're in a conversation, it'll just come out of your mouth. That's how to learn expressions. Hopefully, you understand these at least. Now, if you haven't, don't forget to hit the like button. Subscribe if you want to see my future videos, and check out my links in the description. All right. Just a litter when I listen to Mr. Luke talks. No way. What are you guys talking about? Don't cry for you. What, I feel like I missed a conversation. I'm going to scroll up here and see what I missed. I have never taken any test to determine my English level. That's okay. You don't have to. But if you want to, it's not a bad idea. By the way, Luke is a good teacher. Oh, thank you. By the way, could we go for some beer? Bear! You want to go for some bear? We can go meet a bear. Go to Alaska. Play with a bear. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Shakira is... What? Shakira is what? N-O-U-N-C-T? What's that? Shakira is Colombian. Oh, is she? I like Colombia. Colombia is a cool place. I went there last year, and I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. So, if you guys don't mind, there is one more thing I want to talk about. Lolly asked a very interesting question, and I kind of want to talk about Lolly's question. Although I have to say, this video might not be monetized if I do talk about it, but that's okay, I guess. We'll talk about it anyway. So, Lolly asked in one of the comments about the situation of drugs in the United States, right? So we have kind of a map to look at. Drug legalization. Everybody's probably heard that in America, marijuana is becoming more legal, right? More and more people are smoking marijuana, especially. Wow. I'm getting news here, guys, and I'm sorry. 4 new deaths linked to coronavirus were reported in Washington State. So at the beginning of this live stream, I said that there were 2, right? Now there are 4. My God. That is crazy. It's happening so fast. Wow, 4 new deaths. Sad. Have to read more about it. Shocking. So, Lolly asked about drug legalization, kind of a sensitive topic, I suppose, but still interesting, and I want to share a few things on it. I want to give some stats, and just to kind of let you guys know what's happening in America. It's true that more and more places in America are legalizing marijuana. We also call marijuana weed, right? So let's talk a little bit about drug legalization in America, because Lolly asked about it, and I think it's an interesting topic. It's something that's changing very quickly, and it's worth knowing about. Now, I think one thing people don't realize is that in the United States, many things happen legally, state by state. In the 1980s, 1990s, there was what was called the War on Drugs. This was a huge movement of the police, the government, to fight all drugs. All drugs were considered on the same category, right? Whether it was marijuana or heroin or cocaine, everything was the same, basically. All right. Now, this resulted in the prison population going way up because not only people selling drugs, but also people being caught using drugs would all go to jail, and they still do in many places. Some people would say, yes, of course, because drugs. Well, I understand that. But it has created, I think, a cycle where it makes people more likely to do more crimes in the future. Because when they get out of jail, they have no opportunities, and they're either addicted to drugs or they feel they have no other way to make money other than selling drugs, which is unfortunate. But because they can't get a regular job, that is often the reality. So I think a lot of people would agree that the whole situation of throwing people in jail just for having or using drugs is kind of a shame. And of course, drugs are bad. Let's just say, generally speaking, many drugs are very harmful, especially if we're talking about heroin and that sort of thing. Terrible, addictive. It will kill you, absolutely. But this whole cycle of huge groups of people going to jail for having some marijuana in a bag, it seems a little bit outdated. And it's coming out in the legal system as well. You can sort of see it. More and more states are legalizing marijuana. Now, the first one to do it, I believe, was California. And they did it first as medical marijuana. That means you would have to get a special license for a medical condition so that you could buy weed or marijuana legally in California. Now, that's what it is in New York right now, where I live, okay? This is called a medical marijuana license. All right. Now, what do people use it for? Well, apparently it helps with pain and it helps with certain conditions like seizures, certain mental conditions as well. Okay. So, since that beginning slow move toward legalizations, state by state, the United States has started opening up. A lot of things happen state by state, and then once a certain number of states legalizes something, it goes nationwide. A perfect example of this was the legalization of gay marriage in the United States. State by state started to legalize gay marriage, and then it went national. Now it's legal for people who are gay to get married everywhere in the United States. Okay, so that's what's happening with marijuana now, not other drugs, especially marijuana. Now, with certain other things, like psychedelic drugs, some psychedelic drugs, there are universities doing more tests with them to see if they have some medical benefits, like psychedelic mushrooms and LSD and that sort of thing. We'll leave that on the side because that's kind of a side topic. But there is a growing movement of that too. With the marijuana thing, it's interesting. It's kind of in the West, but slowly starting to move east. And it seems like states will first adopt the medical marijuana policy, and then they will go for full legalization. Now, Canada is right now full legalization. You can go to the store and buy marijuana, either in candy or to smoke or to eat or whatever it is. And if you're driving around in the United States, in a state where it's legal, you can buy some. I remember I was with my father when he tried marijuana for the first time. We went to a state where it was legal, and he said, I want to try marijuana. We were in Colorado. So we bought some for him, and he had it, and he said, I don't feel anything. But 30 minutes later, he did. He said, there are birds attacking me. There are so many birds. I don't know what was going on, but he didn't really enjoy the experience. But anyway, we were in a place where it was legal, and it is legal in Colorado. The benefits of this are, if something is legal, then there's less crime around it. If something is illegal, a lot of people will do it anyway, and it will be sort of underground, right? And that creates a black market, which creates a lot of crime. And crime creates violence. There's a lot of violence in, for example, Mexico and Central America because of drugs, because of, for example, cocaine, things like that, right? A lot of violence because of that, because it's very illegal, because it's strictly enforced, because it's in the black market. Okay. Now, I have sort of a graphic to show you. In the United States, we can see the green is where it's totally legal, and the blue is where it's medical, and then the gray is where it's totally illegal. All right, so California, it's totally legal. Washington State, it is totally legal. Nevada, Colorado, these places, totally legal. And it probably will be, I would guess, if you gave me $50 to bet, I would guess within the next 5 years, marijuana will be legal across the United States. It's definitely kind of happening. It feels like what happened when the United States was slowly legalizing state by state marijuana. Slowly legalizing state by state gay marriage. Kind of feels like that. Eventually, it's going to be so many states that kind of seems ridiculous not to legalize it across the country. I'm guessing that's what's going to happen in the next 5 years, because those states that have it legally, there's less crime. Doesn't seem to be any major downsides. No more car accidents or anything bad happening. And they can get tax revenue from stores that are selling it legally. So it seems like it's a benefit. Don't seem to be too many downsides for legalizing it. Now, there is one more thing I want to mention, though, which is one country which is dealing with their drug issue in a very different way. Now, as you know, in many countries, there are big problems with what are called opioids. And these are drugs like heroin, which is probably the worst one. You've probably seen Breaking Bad. That drug is meth. Very unhealthy. It'll kill you, right? And it kills many people. Now, Portugal, the country of Portugal, has a very interesting policy toward this. In Portugal, if you're caught using even the hard drugs like heroin and meth, any of these, you will not be put in jail. In the United States, if you're caught using these, you would likely be put in jail, probably. And then, you get out and then you try to get help, but then you don't have any money, so you're depressed, so you do more drugs. It's a vicious cycle. But in Portugal, now, they're only catching people who are dealing drugs, only people who have a lot of drugs to give out. I think that makes a lot of sense, because if you instead take people who need help and give them help, rather than putting them in jail where they can't get any help, you're actually giving them something that can improve their lives, because addiction is an illness, I think, not a crime, right? Should people go to jail because they got addicted to a drug? If you're absolutely addicted to a drug, it's not like something you can stop. It's very, very addicting. And so I think these people need help, like an illness, rather than needing to go to jail. So I think the Portuguese model is really interesting. They spend a lot of money helping people recover from drug addiction rather than spending a lot of money keeping people in jail. So something for the United States to look at. I haven't really heard of anybody seriously talking about legalizing using heroin and meth in the United States. That's not really a conversation. The marijuana thing is definitely a big conversation, but I think over the next 5 or 10 years it could be, especially if the model of Portugal looks pretty good and continues to work really well. So anyway, that's the situation for Lolly's question. I think it's a very interesting question, and I'm curious to see what happens in the next few years. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and so that you can see my future videos. And don't forget to check out my courses in the links in the description. Okay. I'm just checking the comments, guys. Cannabis is not legalized in France. Right, but it is legalized in, you can go to like Amsterdam, right? A lot of places it's really illegal, and a lot of places it's kind of in the middle. Canada, now it's legal. Yeah, it's a vicious circle. It really is, and that's very sad. My mother works in helping people who have drug addiction, and she said it's you can't really help them recover because of that cycle. They're addicted, so they can't stop. they get it, but they get it illegally. It's dirty, so it makes them unhealthy. They go to jail because they get caught. In jail, they suffer, and they can't get help, so they're addicted. They get out of jail. They can't get a job because no one wants to hire someone who was in jail, who's a drug addict. So there are no big programs to help. Well, there are some, but there aren't many big programs to help people who are addicted. So then they feel helpless. Then they feel depressed. Because they feel depressed, the only thing that makes them feel better is drugs. So they do drugs, but the only way to get drugs is to buy them, which is illegal, and so they go to jail. And sometimes the only way to get money to buy drugs is to steal something. And so it's this thing that goes around and around and around. One thing I forgot to mention is that something like 80,000 people die per year in the United States from drug overdose. That's a crazy number. Over 80,000 people in the United States die from drug overdose. In Portugal, it's something like 30 people, or less than 50 people. That's a major difference. I know the populations are different. I realize that. But still, it's such a huge difference that it doesn't matter. Over 80,000, 30, huge difference. It's looking at the problem with compassion and saying, make it illegal, is not always the best solution to the problem. Sometimes you have to have empathy for people. The fact that these people are suffering from some problem and they need help to recover. So how can they get the help they need? Maybe they need a job. Maybe they need a program where they can be around other people in a similar situation. Maybe they need a counselor. What can they get which will actually get them out of it? One thing that Portugal does also, which is kind of controversial, is volunteers in Portugal will bring them clean needles that they can use to do their drugs so that at least they're not getting sick from the needles and getting AIDS and stuff like that. That's kind of controversial, but anyway. Crazy. Yeah, I think gay marriage should be legal everywhere, obviously. Hi, can you talk about how to reach America as an immigrant the legal way? I only know... Yeah, I can try. You're welcome, Lolly Lolly. Svetlana, one more question. How to say correctly snorkel set, snorkel kit, or snorkel gear? I would say... Well, you could probably say all of those, right? I would say snorkeling gear, because the snorkeling would be the gear for the activity of snorkeling, right? Which would not only be a snorkel, which would be a snorkel. Snorkel is this thing that you breathe when you swim. Snorkel, a mask, and flippers for your feet, right? That's what I would say. I would say a snorkeling gear. I'm going to get some snorkeling gear. A snorkel set might just be the mask and the goggles, right? Snorkel kit sounds a little too medical, so set sounds better to me. Yeah. Is the world being progressed or deteriorated? I think it depends on how you look at it, but I would say progress. If you look at the rates of violence around the world, and people getting along better, countries getting along better, the rate of war in the world, globally, it's going down, 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 down every single year. Then the country has to deal with mental illness. Yeah, but would you rather deal with mental illness or huge groups of people in jail likely to cause more crime in the future? I think the choice is a no-brainer. So, Shosha says, how can I become an immigrant the legal way? Now, there are a number of different ways to become a green card holder in the United States. One way to get into the United States legally is to get a job. You have to get offered a job by an employer in the United States because you have a skill that is needed in the United States that maybe can't be filled. There are a lot of people who work in, for example, coding, developing, right? Or sometimes IT. A lot of technical jobs often require more than what the United States has within the United States, and so they will hire people from other countries to come and work, usually, and offer them some sort of green card or working visa or something like that. Now, usually those are highly skilled jobs, and I can tell you it is not easy to get an offer from a company to come to the United States to work legally. It is really not easy. Now, I can only share my experience of doing this because I have gone through the process, the green card process, and now I'm currently going through the immigration process, rather the process of becoming a citizen. Not me, but my wife. Okay, so I've been married for, it's a good question, 6 years, I think. And so we decided when we were living in China, my wife is Chinese, that we would come to the United States to live. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is fill in a bunch of paperwork. Some people get a lawyer, but you don't have to get a lawyer. You have to be married already. Or you could have a fiancé, but basically have a marriage date. But it's definitely easier if you're already married. You can do it from the United States or from the country that you got married in. I got married in China, and it was no problem doing it from China. So you have to complete an application, and you have to provide evidence to support the fact that you're actually married. Okay, that would be something like letters from all of your friends who know you, who sign and then get a stamp that says this is true, right? Legally, they have to certify that it's true. Pictures of you and your spouse together, no, they don't really care too much about that. It's got to be formal stuff. Insurance plans that you have together. All of the things that you have together, including those letters from your friends that prove that you are a real couple and not a fake married couple for the purpose of immigration only. All of that stuff you have to submit along with the application. And you have to pay, obviously. I think it's something like $1,000 the first time. Okay. So then you wait to hear back, and then there's another process of doing an interview. You have to go to the consulate in the country, or perhaps if you're in the United States, and you have to do an interview and submit a bunch more paperwork. Tons more paperwork. I don't even remember all the paperwork, but it was a lot. And I stayed up all night making sure it was all correct and all perfect. We worked on it very, very hard. It's not a simple process. From the time we first started until she got her interview to go to the United States and get her green card, that was about 11 months at that time. This was several years ago. Now, once you get to the United States, if you've been married less than 2 years, then you get what's called a temporary green card, which is a 2-year green card. Then you have to get it updated, which is called removing the conditions. So it's a conditional green card. Once you finish that process, that's another $700, more paperwork, another application, which is just getting the same thing, only permanent, right? Getting the conditions removed. Then you have 10 years. You have a green card for 10 years. Now, if you want, you can apply for citizenship. If you're married to an American, then you can apply for citizenship after being in America, married with your green card, for 3 years. If you have a green card, for example, through your company, a company that hired you, who offered you the green card, then it is 5 years. So 5 years in the United States with a green card by yourself, you can apply for citizenship. 3 years if you're married to an American citizen. If you want to get the citizenship, you can process it a little earlier, basically. That's how it works. Now, you don't get the green card before you go to the United States. So going back, after the interview, then we went on a small vacation, and then we came to the United States with a bunch of paperwork, which they checked again many, many times, checking, asking questions, very complicated, and we traveled with cats. We brought 2 cats over, so that was even more complicated. And then you have to wait to receive your green card. You will get it in the mail after you arrive in the United States if you applied abroad. So then once you get it, you wait 2 years. Unless you've already been married 2 years, then you get the 10-year green card automatically. So basically I'm saying it's very complicated. It's not easy. Probably the easiest way to do it is to do it through marriage, but that's not easy either. Don't let anybody tell you that it is. I know from personal experience, it's very complicated. We're very near the last step of the process for getting citizenship, and it will be nice once that's all over with, because it's certainly been an extremely long and tiring, exhausting, boring, expensive process. But it'll be worth it, because right now she is a Chinese citizen who has an American green card. And when we want to travel abroad, she has to do a lot of paperwork and apply for a lot of visas. But if she had American citizenship, we plan to live here forever, so it makes sense, right? If she had American citizenship, then traveling abroad would be a lot easier. With an American passport, you can go to most countries without applying for a visa. It's a lot easier. It's a lot simpler. So that's probably what will happen. Anyway, hopefully that answers your question. My throat's getting tired, guys. Might have to cut it short. How about the formal marriage paper? Yeah, you have to do all that stuff too. I mean, you have to get the formal... The thing that makes it harder is, for example, we got our marriage certificates in China. So you have to get formal translations of the marriage certificates. Then the formal translations of the marriage certificates, or marriage books in the case of China, have to be notarized, which in China is a very complicated process. They have to stamp it and stuff, and then you send that to the United States government. Ugh. Anyway, it sucks. It sucks. Would a full-face respirator, mask, and gloves work against the virus? Yes, but I think that's excessive, probably. It's not necessary to have a full-face respirator, mask, and gloves. I think it's excessive. Based on my research, no matter what type of mask you use, you're not completely blocked from any chance of getting the virus. And also, you're more likely to get it by touching the gloves to your eyes than from breathing it in anyway. The most likely place to get it is on your hands, touching something that other people have touched. And then once you do that or something in any way, then you can get it very easily. So it's mostly, saliva or your mouth or anywhere on your face. So whenever you get home, wash your hands immediately. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Wash your hands before you eat. Wash your hands when you get home. Bring hand sanitizer with you, and probably get a mask. But from my research, if it's a paper mask, if it's an N95 mask, if it's a surgical mask, all of them should be okay. What do you mean when you say choice is a no-brainer? What is a no-brainer? A no-brainer is something that you don't have to think too much about. If someone says, oh, that's a no-brainer. Which movie should we see? Should we see that one or that one? Let's see that one. That's a no-brainer. That means obviously that movie is going to be better than that movie, right? It's just an easy and obvious choice that doesn't take a lot of thinking. That's what it means. That's what it means. All right, guys. I've got to say, my throat is starting to feel kind of tired. Scratchy, So I think I'm going to call it for today. Sorry we can't go a little longer, but my throat is really starting to feel kind of tired and scratchy. I need to get some tea or something. Dry, very dry, very dry. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate everybody who hung out. I would appreciate if you guys can, before you leave, hit the like button if you haven't already. Make sure you are subscribed so you can see this Friday's weekly video. You can join the Facebook group if you want. I share clips from the live streams there and other stuff too. Let's see. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you check out my links in the description. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm going to go make a cup of tea and maybe watch some YouTube videos. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. See you next time. See you Friday. See you Friday. Appreciate it, lolly lolly. Thanks a bunch. Bye.